Dear friends, we are on day 17 already as we journey towards the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And the first reading is taken from this wonderful book, My Imitation of Christ, Book 1, chapter number 24. And the topic is, quote, the judgment and the punishment of sin, close quote. The first sentence challenged me a lot. That is, that in whatever I do, I must remember the end of my life and the judgment that awaits me. But how does this topic relate to self? How? I mean, we're dealing with the knowledge of self and how to conquer self. I thought about this and I realized that it relates to self in that my reactive self has this tendency to keep wanting materialism, material things, and acquiring worldly goods to the extent that it forgets that the good things of life are temporary. And this is serious. So if I bear the end of my life in mind, I will always strive to subdue self so that self will sit up and cooperate with my soul in readiness for death. I will flee from sin always, especially mortal sin. I will never procrastinate. I will always pray more decades of the rosary, because each Hail Mary calls on Mother Mary to pray for me now and at that hour when it will happen, the hour of my death. The author has confirmed that the day of judgment is certain. And I'm very sure, I'm really sure, that the devil does not want me to be in a state of grace at the hour of my death. He doesn't want it. So I now see the need to ask Mother Mary to pray for me now and at the hour of my death. She will mold me to become Christ-like, because it was in her that Jesus as a person was formed. And she will also obtain from me the grace of a holy and happy death, to die in a state of grace. One phrase stuck to my mind in that first paragraph, and that is, quote, he said, how you shall stand before the strict judge from whom nothing is hidden, close quote. Here, I'm encouraged to open myself to God, because to Him, nothing is hidden. No matter how much myself thinks God is not watching. Now, how and why should I open myself to God? Why and how? It is by living my life believing that God is seeing me 24/7. When I'm conjuring sin within myself, He knows. When I move to implement the sinful thoughts, He knows. And when I commit it, He sees it all. So the how is to make sure that whatever I do and in whatever I do, I must do such as though Jesus and Mary were there, watching me and assessing me. This is important in dressing up, in watching movies, whatever. The reason is that whether I like it or not, every second of my life will be accounted for. Jesus said it, and the author said so. The author called Him a strict judge. Strict in the real sense of being strict. He will scrutinize my smiles, my prayers, the works of charity, the movies I watched, the movies, yes, reality TV shows and all that, the masses I attended, the times I used for sleeping or chatting on Facebook, WhatsApp, and so on. Everything will be accounted for before my strict judge. So I need to watch self and understand self, lest myself puts me in trouble. I think that's why the author said that we shall be judged by a judge, quote, who will pronounce judgment in all justice, accepting neither bribes nor excuses, close quote. So the second reading was taken from Luke, the Gospel of Luke chapter 16, from verse 1 to 8. And the topic is, quote, the parable of the dishonest manager. Close quote. This passage, it gave me a tough time to even meditate upon, because there was something there. The first part was clear, but the second part was a bit tough to accept by normal reasoning, and I'll tell you why shortly. I easily saw the rich man as God, okay? And I see the dishonest manager as myself. That's fine. Why am I the manager? Because God gave me a lot of good things to manage for him. So I'm a manager. Things like time, time in the real sense of time, 4 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 second, 2 seconds, and so on. And also money, fame, intelligence, wife and children, parish church, even crosses and sicknesses and contradictions of life. Those are gifts from God. I see dishonesty in this case as my inability to use the gifts and graces that I received from God properly, and even the crosses he sent me and the contradictions, misusing them. That's a bad manager. Applying my will in my undertakings instead of the will of God. When the rich man says, quote, "Give me an accounting of your management because you cannot be my manager any longer," close quote. It is just like God telling me, "Hey Raymond, my son, prepare for death, after which you will give account of your life, for very soon you shall be no more on earth." But here is a tough one. The dishonest servant did not stop his dishonesty even after his sack was announced to him. He did not stop. He started canceling debts on credits he did not give. That's my problem. His master's debtors did not owe him. So why should you cancel debts that you were not owed? They owed his master, yet he was busy canceling their debts. After much headache, I decided to observe the reason why he did that. And I read what he told himself. Wow. Quote, he said, and that's the answer there. He said, "What will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I have decided what to do so that when I'm dismissed as manager, people may welcome me in their homes." Close quote. That is the secret. Number one, the dishonest servant recognized his weakness, his incapacity. That's why he said, "I cannot dig, I cannot beg." Watch it. Number two, he then started making provision for life after his dismissal. That is it. That's the message. That I must recognize my unworthiness and nothingness of my flesh, as well as how brief my stay on earth could be or is, and use the remaining time and the earthly goods that I have on earth to do good and alleviate other people's physical and spiritual sufferings. Those who are suffering physically or spiritually are like those servants who owe their master in that story. So when I use my time and goods, earthly goods, to do corporal or spiritual works of mercy, like booking masses and all that, for them, I alleviate their sufferings, just like the dishonest manager who cancelled the debts owed his master. It's now making more sense now. This is necessary so that when God's call comes and my time of death comes, God's mercy will find me at that point, or even before then. I also realized that there are souls in purgatory who will spend different number of years in there, just like the servants who owe their master 80 or 100 or 40 in that story. So when I offer my earthly pains for the souls in purgatory and book masses for them, I reduce their stay in purgatory. Some may be from 100 years, I'll reduce it to 50. Others may be from 80 years. By my offering my pains for them and booking masses, I reduce it to 40, just like the dishonest servant did in that story. And I should do this like the astute steward, so that when those souls leave purgatory and enter heaven, they will not forget me in their heavenly joy. When my period of departure comes, they will remember me. In summary, I must keep the reality of death at the back of my mind, always. I must always acknowledge how temporary my stay on earth is and the certainty of judgment. And I must sacrifice myself, my time, my earthly goods whilst I'm alive in order to make provision for the time I will die and face the strict judge. And I must check self, lest self makes me to lose sight of the certain judgment and the certain death. And that will be all for now. See you on day 18. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.